They laughed at them, called them tryhards, teachers' pets, too black to be smart and too smart to be cool. They shoved their books, deleted their names off group projects, and joked about them behind their backs. But the twins didn't fight back. They built something bigger. When they launched the school's media channel, no one paid attention. Now, it controls the trends, sets the stories, makes or breaks reputations. And the twins? They don't chase popularity anymore. They own it. At Westfield High, you knew your place by the third period. Athletes ruled the cafeteria. Cheerleaders ran the hallway gossip circuits. Theater kids lived backstage. And somewhere between all that noise, sitting dead center in the front row of every honors class, were Ava and Amani James. 17 years old, identical to the point that substitutes gave up even trying, slim but sharp around the eyes, with low braided buns and glasses that slid down their noses when they scribbled notes faster than anyone else in the room. Every outfit was clean, quiet. Navy blazers, white polos, neatly pressed khakis or skirts. No loud jewelry, no wild makeup. Always composed. If teachers loved them, classmates barely noticed them, except when they answered questions so fast it made everyone else feel stupid. It wasn't that Ava and Amani tried to stand out. They were just impossible to ignore. Every assignment was color-coded and perfectly punched into binders. Every lab report was turned in early. Every quiz, near perfect. When it came time for class discussions, they didn't just participate, they dissected arguments like surgeons. And that was the real problem. In a place like Westfield, you could be smart. You just couldn't be obvious about it. Ava and Amani didn't play the game. They didn't dumb it down, didn't apologize for it, didn't ask to be liked. They just showed up prepared, every single day. Logan Pierce, the school's golden boy quarterback, was the first to make it a public joke. In AP U.S. history, when the teacher asked about the political causes of the Great Depression, Ava answered in under 10 seconds. Full thesis, dates, citations. The room went awkwardly quiet. Logan, lounging 3 seats behind her with his varsity jacket half zipped and a smirk on his face, leaned over to Reese and stage whispered, "Yo, chill, Wikipedia." Snickers rippled through the class. Ms. Aldridge shushed them, but it didn't matter. The damage was done. From then on, the twins weren't just the smart ones. They were the know-it-alls, the overachievers, the girls who ruined the curve. Kids didn't exactly bully them the way movies show bullies operating. There were no lockers slammed, no cruel notes. But the weapon here was exclusion. Side eyes, whispered jokes when they passed. Group projects suddenly didn't have room. Study sessions where they forgot to text them. Even teachers got casual about it, laughing off comments like, "Well, we know Ava will have it perfect, right?" As if that wasn't a jab dressed as a compliment. By lunch, they were always alone. Same table, near the back of the cafeteria, trays arranged neatly. Turkey sandwich, apple slices, water bottle. No one sat with them. No one wanted to be seen next to the human grade machines. It wasn't violent. It was surgical, quiet. The kind of cutting you can't point at when you try to explain later why it hurt. They noticed. Of course they did. Every fake smile, every whispered laugh. Every time a teacher paired them together automatically because no one else volunteered. They saw it all. They just didn't react the way the bullies expected. They didn't cry. They didn't beg for attention. They didn't change who they were. Instead, Ava kept a notebook tucked under her history binder, not for class notes, for observations, names, patterns. Reese always laughed the loudest when Logan made a joke. Tyrell laughed too, but he checked the twins afterward, like he wasn't sure if it was funny. Madison would copy Ava's answers during quizzes, but pretend not to know her during lunch. Little things, marked, tracked, filed. Imani, for her part, started cataloging the social web. Who sat where? Who retweeted what? Who posted passive-aggressive snaps after football games? Who was climbing and who was falling? It was like building a map, but instead of streets, it was reputations, egos, insecurities. She drew it out at night when they studied, highlighters and sticky notes littered across the dining table like battle plans. They didn't say it out loud, but they both knew. This wasn't high school. This was war, the quiet kind. And while everyone else was busy playing popularity games, Ava and Amani were sharpening swords no one else could see. By October, the jokes got lazier, less clever, more bitter. Bet they sleep with flashcards. Probably took the SAT in 4th grade. Damn, can you imagine being that desperate for attention? The irony wasn't lost on the twins. They didn't post thirst traps, didn't show up at parties, didn't snap selfies in the gym mirror. All they did was win quietly, and for some reason, that made people angrier than anything else. After Halloween, Ava overheard a group of juniors whispering in the library. "Nobody cares how smart you are. You'll still be nobody after high school." Amani smiled when Ava told her later. "They're wrong," she said, calmly tying a fresh stack of note cards together with a rubber band. "After high school, we'll be the only ones that matter." Because while the rest of Westfield High was worried about weekend plans and Instagram likes, Ava and Amani were building something bigger. They just hadn't revealed it yet. Not yet. By November, the twins had officially disappeared from Westfield High's social map. Not that they were invisible. No, they were seen. Just not included. They were the fixed points everyone moved around, like old furniture nobody wanted to admit they needed. It wasn't open hostility. It was worse. Selective blindness. At lunch, tables filled up magically right as they approached. In group assignments, teachers gave the usual tight-lipped smile. "Why don't you two pair up?" In hallways, conversations broke off the moment they got close, replaced by the fake shuffle of papers or sudden intense locker checking. They existed like ghosts, hyper-visible yet unacknowledged. Ava kept noticing the details. How when she raised her hand, the teacher hesitated longer before calling on her, almost hoping someone else would jump in first. How group project announcements always came with the same joke whispered just a little too loudly. "Well, guess who's getting an A for free?" Amani saw the digital version. Group chats formed, private Snap groups, Discord study servers, and somehow the invite never reached their phones. Birthday parties, team outings, study sleepovers, all advertised with smiling pictures, perfectly lit, and never including them, not once. She screenshotted everyone, not for revenge, for records. Some days it almost worked. The loneliness, the isolation, that gnawing, needling urge to fit, to belong, to be seen. But every time the bitterness started to rise in Ava's throat, she looked at her sister across the lunch table, silent, deliberate, head bowed over another thick book, and remembered. They didn't come here to be popular. They came here to be unforgettable. The turning point, though, came quietly on a rainy Thursday afternoon. It wasn't some big public humiliation. It wasn't some cruel joke. It was a single look. Logan and Reese were holding court in the cafeteria again, cracking jokes, doing impressions, laughing too loud. Everyone was orbiting them, like always. When Ava and Amani entered, the laughter spiked. But the second they passed, Logan's voice dropped low and bitter. There they go. Probably off to draft a 10-page essay about why lunch should be optimized for brain function. The table erupted in laughter, heads turning, shoulders shaking, and then something small but sharp shifted. A freshman girl, new enough to still wear her ID badge on a lanyard, didn't laugh. She looked at Ava and Amani, and she smiled. Not mockery, not pity, recognition. The twins caught it, filed it away. It wasn't about winning them all. It was about winning the right ones. Later that night, in their bedroom, while Ava typed notes for their AP Calculus review and Imani outlined their mock trial arguments, they said almost nothing, just sat in the shared silence, methodical, steady, until Imani closed her laptop, leaned back in her chair, and said, "You know what our problem is?" Ava looked up, raised an eyebrow. "We're letting them decide what winning looks like." Ava thought about it, then nodded once, slow. "Then let's change the rules." It wasn't dramatic. No fiery declarations, no sudden transformation montage, just two girls making a quiet decision to build their own game board while everyone else was busy playing checkers. From that moment, everything shifted. Not the way they dressed. They still wore their blazers, their neat braids, their sensible shoes. Not the way they talked. Still precise, still clear, still refusing to flatten their minds for anyone else's comfort. But behind the scenes, they started sketching something different. A project, a platform, a power base. And it started, like most revolutions do, not with an explosion, but with a blueprint. The opportunity came disguised as a boring extra credit project. Ms. Fields, the creative writing teacher, needed volunteers to design promotional posters for the upcoming Multicultural Week. Nothing fancy, nothing graded, just something colorful to stick on the walls, she said, waving her hand vaguely like it didn't matter. Nobody raised their hand, not Logan, not the theater kids, not even the art club regulars. Ava glanced at Imani. A tiny nod passed between them, invisible to anyone not looking. "We'll do it," Ava said, her voice steady, eyes locked on Ms. Fields. The teacher looked relieved more than impressed. "Great," she said, already moving on, not realizing the fuse she had just lit. That night, the twins didn't just make a poster. They stayed up past midnight sketching layouts, testing color palettes, arguing over fonts like generals choosing battle flags. They didn't just want the posters to be seen, they wanted them to be felt. Ava handled the copy. Sharp slogans, clean lines, perfect rhythm. Imani designed the graphics. Bold colors, layered textures, movement that pulled your eye whether you wanted to look or not. By Friday, the first poster went up on the main hallway corkboard. A crimson background. A silhouette of students from every background, arms locked, in clean white letters across the middle. "We are Westfield." Simple, powerful, unignorable. By third period, people started noticing. "Yo, who made that poster? It actually looks fire. Did the art club step up their game or what?" By lunch, someone had already posted a picture of it on Westfield's unofficial student page. Over 400 likes in 2 hours. Comments flooded in. "Best thing this school's put out all year. Finally something that doesn't look like it was made in MS Paint. Low-key iconic." The twins didn't say anything, didn't claim it, didn't correct the rumors. They just watched. Watched as more teachers requested posters. Watched as the principal himself asked if they could make a design for the official school Instagram. Watched as, for the first time, their work wasn't mocked. It was wanted. They knew better than to rush. One good project didn't change the system, but it cracked something. A small fissure. A way in. At dinner that night, Imani pulled out her laptop and flipped it around for Ava to see. On the screen, a mock-up site. Simple, elegant, a bold header at the top. Vision, powered by Westfield Minds. Ava smiled, slow and dangerous, because this wasn't about one poster. This was about building a platform, something that could make the twins, the outsiders, the overlooked, the too much girls, the very center of the conversation. Not by asking, not by begging, by owning the conversation completely. And once you controlled the conversation, you controlled everything. They waited 2 more weeks. 2 weeks of building, designing, polishing every word, every pixel. 2 weeks of pretending nothing had changed while Vision grew in the shadows. A full-blown digital magazine disguised as a school project. Articles, playlists, interviews, opinion columns, rankings, memes, advice columns, all curated with laser focus. They knew exactly who they were speaking to, the kids who didn't fit neatly into cliques, the ones tired of the same 5 people deciding what mattered, the ones waiting for someone else to change the game. They picked a Friday afternoon for the drop, right after the pep rally, when phones were out and nobody was pretending to listen to teachers anymore. Ava pressed publish at 3:07 p.m. By 3:09, the first screenshot hit Snapchat. At 3:12, a junior posted the link on Westfield Exposed with the caption, "Yo, who did this? This is clean." By 3:17, it was in the hands of every social circle they had mapped 6 months earlier. Basketball team, drama club, band kids, STEM club, cheerleaders. The entire ecosystem flooded instantly. The homepage hit like a bomb. Top 10 fits of the week. Unfiltered interview with the band's lead drummer. Worst lunches ranked. Sorry, Monday meatloaf. Playlist drops for every mood. No skip certified. Anonymous student confessions, verified only. It wasn't just that it was good. It felt real, sharp, unbothered. Better than anything the actual student government had ever put out. At first, the so-called cool kids laughed. Logan reposted the homepage on his story with the caption, "LeMayo who has this much time." 30 minutes later, he posted again, "Loki, that lunch article facts though." By Monday, it wasn't just reposts. It was respect. The basketball team asked for an interview. The art kids wanted to collaborate. Even the head of the homecoming committee asked if Vision could maybe feature some candidates, with a fake casual smile that didn't fool anyone. At the center of it all, Ava and Amani remained ghosts. No names, no tags, no authorship. They let the brand breathe on its own. People started speculating, it's gotta be seniors. Maybe the yearbook team finally got smart? I heard it's college students trolling us. Nobody guessed the quiet black girls who still sat alone at lunch, still wore their neat cardigans, still corrected teachers when they misquoted textbooks. And that's exactly how the twins wanted it. An empire built in silence, influence without exposure, power without permission. While everyone else chased likes and laughs, Ava and Amani pulled the strings from behind the curtain, knowing the truth. When you own the conversation, you don't have to shout. You just have to make sure everyone listens when you whisper. By the second Monday after Vision launched, Westfield High didn't feel like the same school anymore. The first signs were almost too subtle to notice. Flyers for club meetings that used to be torn down or ignored suddenly stayed up. If Vision promoted them, kids showed up. The Friday game, which was expected to flop thanks to 3 straight team losses, packed out the stands, because Vision had casually dropped a top 5 underrated athletes you should watch article featuring 2 bench warmers. Overnight, those guys became mini-celebrities. The cafeteria chatter changed, too. It wasn't just gossip about parties or hookups anymore. It was debates about who got ranked best fit of the week, arguments over the latest playlist drops, people speculating about who had leaked the most savage confession of the month, a brutal but hilarious takedown of the lunch staff's infamous mystery meat. The center of gravity had shifted, and most people hadn't even realized it yet. What they did realize was that clout now flowed through a new channel, and it wasn't the football team, it wasn't the cheerleaders, it wasn't even the student council, it was Vision. Behind the scenes, Ava and Amani fine-tuned everything with surgical precision. They tracked clicks, heat-mapped how long people spent on different articles, adjusted layouts mid-week depending on what went viral. If an article didn't perform, it was gone. No loyalty, no filler, pure strategy. They didn't publish often, only the best. One update every Friday just before fourth period, right when attention started dipping and students needed something to devour between classes. It was clean, predictable, addictive. And the best part? Nobody still knew it was them. Teachers started praising student innovation. Clubs started emailing Vision's anonymous address begging for features. Seniors started offering cash for promo spots. Even the principal, who initially pretended not to notice, eventually called it an inspiring example of student-led creativity at a staff meeting. Logan tried to act like he didn't care. Sat at his lunch table, tossing a football hand to hand, fake laughing louder than necessary when Vision ranked the homecoming outfits and didn't include him in the top 10. "Not even trying," he muttered to Reese. "That site's rigged anyway." But everyone could see the shift. Girls he used to mock were now mini-influencers, followed for their Vision-approved style. Guys he used to joke with were now trying to get featured. Nobody was checking his stories for updates anymore. They were refreshing Vision. Reese tried to play it smooth. "Yo, maybe we should DM them. Get our band on there or something." Logan rolled his eyes but didn't say no. Even Tyrell, who had always been quieter, started tagging Vision in his sneaker posts, hoping to catch attention. And the twins? They never changed a thing. Still same lunch table. Still same cardigans. Still same quiet observation of everything happening. The only real difference now was how people looked at them when they passed. No more snickering. No more side comments. Now it was glances over shoulders, half smiles, nervous shifts, a whispered, "I think that's them." Nobody knew for sure, but the school could feel it. The same girls they had laughed at 6 months ago. They weren't background noise anymore. They were the current that decided who floated and who sank. And the twins had no plans to slow down, because Westfield High was starting to learn something the hard way. Influence doesn't always come from the loudest voice. Sometimes it comes from the smartest hands, the ones quietly and visibly rearranging the board, until you realize too late that the game isn't what you thought it was. It never was. It was inevitable. Power attracts imitators and resentment. It started small, a whisper here, a sarcastic post there. At first it was harmless. Fake Vision Leaks pages popping up on TikTok, run by kids trying to grab some clout by parodying the original. Memes circulating that joked Vision was just two nerds with a Canva subscription. Nothing that bothered Ava and Amani. They tracked the metrics. None of the fakes even scratched their numbers. But resentment festers fast in places like Westfield, especially when old hierarchies feel threatened. The real shift came when the student council president, Jason McMillan, tried to partner with Vision. A formal email was sent, full of fake flattery, offering co-branding opportunities and joint messaging. Translation: Jason wanted control. Ava and Amani didn't even respond. They didn't need validation from a guy who needed a resume bullet point. Vision was bigger than the council now, and Jason knew it. 2 days later, a rumor slipped into the bloodstream. Vision was run by a bunch of arrogant elitists who thought they were better than everyone else. No names, no proof, just poison, whispered into ears desperate for something to believe. It wasn't just Jason. It was the theater kids who never got a feature. The cheerleaders who expected automatic praise and didn't get it. The legacy kids who assumed respect was theirs by birthright. They didn't know who ran Vision. But it didn't matter. They needed a target, and when targets weren't available, they invented them. Someone created a fake exposé. Vision is just a popularity machine for wannabe celebrities. They blacklist people they don't like. They're ruining real school spirit. It was laughably transparent. The grammar was sloppy. The screenshots were clearly doctored. But still, it spread, because people wanted to believe it. It gave them permission to hate something they couldn't control. For a second, A brief second, Ava and Imani considered responding, publishing a rebuttal, showing the analytics, flexing receipts. But then Ava closed her laptop, leaned back and said, "Let them talk." Imani nodded slowly. "We don't explain ourselves to the people we're beating, because responding would dignify it. And they didn't need to play defense, not when they were still 10 steps ahead. Instead, they tightened the ship. Every post on Vision got even sharper, even cleaner. Features focused more on student achievements. Profiles highlighted new talent. Reviews stayed brutally honest but fair. They doubled down on the very thing that made them untouchable: authenticity. And the real students, the ones who actually cared, noticed. Comments flooded in under their latest top 10 list. "Vision stays real. Y'all the only ones telling the truth. Westfield would be boring without this page far." The fake expose burned out in 3 days. Nobody even remembered who started it. Meanwhile, Vision's follower count doubled. Invites rolled in from outside, nearby schools asking if they could syndicate the model, a local news outlet reaching out for an interview, teachers gossiping in the lounge. "Have you seen what the students are doing? Honestly, it's better than half our official materials." The resentment didn't vanish, of course. It went underground, smoldered. Quiet jealousy never dies. It just changes faces. Some students started smiling too wide when they saw Ava and Imani. Others offered fake compliments. "Love your little project. You guys are like so creative." Ava and Imani smiled back, every time, with the same polite, unreadable expression they had perfected over years of being underestimated. But inside, they didn't forget. Every fake grin, every backhanded compliment, every cheap attempt to drag them down. They didn't rage about it. They didn't rant. They documented it. Because when you're building an empire in enemy territory, you don't get sentimental. You stay disciplined. And you remember, reputation is currency. Influence is power. But memory is the weapon that never rusts, and the twins were planning to spend it when the time was right. Spring elections at Westfield High were usually a joke. Campaign posters slapped onto lockers with cheap tape. Cringy Instagram stories begging for votes. The same types of kids running every year, loud, shiny, born into popularity by default. No one paid real attention. No one believed any of it mattered. But this year was different. It started with a rumor that Vision was going to endorse someone, that whoever Vision backed would sweep the elections, no questions asked. Within days, candidates started sending anonymous emails to the Vision inbox, bribes disguised as partnerships, promises of exclusive scoops. Some even offered to pay cash, thinking they were cutting a deal with bored seniors. Ava and Imani didn't respond. They watched. They watched as the desperation spread. They watched as old alliances crumbled, popular kids stabbing each other in the back to chase the shadow of Vision's influence. They watched and planned. The truth was, they never intended to endorse anyone. They didn't need someone else to carry the brand. They were the brand. The suggestion to run came from Madison Cook, ironically one of the first girls who used to mock them. She cornered Ava outside AP Government one afternoon, practically bouncing with excitement. "You guys should run, like, for real? President and VP, everyone would vote for you." Ava raised one eyebrow. Imani said nothing. Madison kept going, not even waiting for agreement. "Seriously, you're the only people who actually get things done around here. No offense, but the rest of the candidates are clowns." Word spread fast, faster than they could have predicted. By the next morning, a movement had already started without them. Students began printing their own campaign flyers. Vision for president. Run the school like you run the culture. Real leaders, not empty promises. No slogans designed by Ava. No posters approved by Amani. The students built it themselves. That's when the administration panicked. Mr. Crawley, the assistant principal, called them into his office, tried to talk them down, all polite concern. "We're worried about the optics of a media platform controlling elections." Ava smiled tightly. "We didn't endorse anyone," Amani added, voice calm but icy. "We didn't even announce we're running." Crawley blinked, stammered. They knew. He knew. Everyone knew. The momentum was already out of their hands. When Election Day came, there was no competition. Vision didn't post anything, didn't promote themselves, didn't brag. And still, when the final tally came in, the numbers weren't close. Ava James, 68% of the vote. Amani James, 64% of the vote. The next highest candidate? 11%. The auditorium roared when their names were announced, not because they campaigned, not because they begged, because Westfield knew exactly who had been shaping the world they lived in for the past 6 months, and they wanted the architects at the helm. Logan clapped once, slow, forced, then shoved his hands back in his hoodie pocket. Reese didn't even bother to hide his glare. Madison and Tyrell actually stood and cheered. Half the teachers smiled like proud parents pretending they hadn't underestimated them all year. The twins didn't react outwardly. They stood on stage, side by side, cardigans pressed, braids tight, glasses reflecting the stage lights, faces steady as stone. But inside? Inside, they burned with the kind of triumph only the quietly humiliated ever truly savor. They hadn't played the game. They had rewritten the rules. And now they didn't just influence Westfield. They ran it, officially, unapologetically, irrevocably. And the ones who laughed first? They weren't laughing anymore. They were just trying to keep up. Graduation season at Westfield High always felt a little chaotic. Senior pranks, last-minute suspensions, yearbook signatures filled with half-meant goodbyes. But this year, something different hung in the air. Something heavier, sharper, more permanent. Because this was the year everyone knew who had really run the school. Not the homecoming king, not the cheer captain, not the football team. 2 black girls in clear-framed glasses and navy cardigans. 2 tryhards who smiled politely while building an empire under everyone's nose. 2 sisters who had turned exclusion into momentum, silence into influence, and humiliation into absolute dominance. The final proof came on senior awards night. The principal, standing stiff behind the podium, hesitated before announcing it, like the words themselves tasted sour in his mouth. This year's outstanding contribution to Student Culture Award goes to Ava and Amani James for their leadership in launching Vision. The auditorium exploded. Real applause, not the slow, polite kind teachers forced out of obligation. Students actually stood up, cheered, stomped, whistled. Not because they had to, because they meant it. Because by then, Vision wasn't just a project. It was the school's heartbeat. It set the trends, controlled the narratives, made and broke reputations. It decided what mattered, who mattered. And it all traced back to Ava and Amani, 2 girls nobody wanted to sit with at lunch 7 months ago. As they crossed the stage, heads high, shoulders back, smiles tight and victorious, Logan watched from the second row, arms crossed, jaw clenched. Reese sat 3 seats over, staring at the floor like if he didn't look, it wouldn't be real. Madison clapped so hard she dropped her program. Tyrell stood the entire time. Teachers smiled too wide. Parents clutched their phones, recording every second, trying to capture history as it walked right past them. Because make no mistake, this was history. The girls they had laughed at, mocked, excluded, dismissed, had rebuilt the walls around them and handed themselves the keys. And they had done it without changing who they were. No sellout makeovers, no fake smiles, no apologies, just precision, strategy, relentless patience, When Vision dropped its final senior issue, it wasn't just a highlight reel. It was a manifesto. Interviews with underdog students who'd built real skills. Spotlights on teachers who actually cared. Guides for surviving the toxic games that had ruled Westfield for too long. And on the back cover, a full-page graphic. A silhouette of two girls, backs straight, fists clenched behind them, facing a school building cracking at the foundation. Underneath, in clean black letters, "We weren't given a place, so we built one." No names, no signatures, no credits, because by then, everyone knew. At graduation, when their names were called, it wasn't just a walk across the stage. It was a coronation. And as they walked, hundreds of students stood again, unprompted, not just for Ava and Amani, but for what they represented. That silence, that slow rising applause, that was Westfield High admitting it without saying a word. The nerds had taken the throne, and they weren't giving it back.